All right, we want to welcome everybody to our board meeting tonight. It's Monday, June 13th, 2016, and we're actually reconvening after a short recess here. We had a closed session for litigation strategy and exempt meeting on strategy for union and non-union employee groups. So we're just reconvening after that, and I want to welcome everyone. So with that, we'll go ahead and open the meeting with the public hearing, BA 16313. It's a public hearing on the compliance with Children's Internet Protection Act. And Lori, did you have any comments with this, or? And Laurel, had you received any comments about the public hearing?
I have received no comments.
No comments, okay. And is there anybody in the audience tonight that would like to address the board at this public hearing? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close that public hearing. Next, I'll turn it over to you, Dr. Buck, for the superintendent's report.
Yeah, so this is our first meeting since commencement exercises, so I want to take this opportunity again to congratulate the 1,042 students who graduated a few weeks ago from our 4 high schools. I think we shook the hands of every single one of those 1,042 kids, so, but it was a team effort, as well as students from our homeschool assistance program and the Special Services Transition Center. So congratulations again to the class of 2016. And I had the privilege of shaking my niece's hand from Jefferson, so that was fun. And staying with the end of the year theme, June 2nd was the last day of classes for all students, and I had the chance to visit probably, I suppose, 7 or so of our schools. And so lots of exciting and energetic activities underway on the last day of school, and lots of smiles. So if you want to visit a school and get lots of smiles and handshakes, June 2nd was a good day to do that. So people are excited about heading off for the summer. So the Metro High School STEAM Academy wrapped up the school year with a unique weather balloon launch event in partnership with the Cedar Rapids Public Library and the local company EcoLips. Participating students worked with engineers from Rockwell Collins on the project to construct and program the weather data station that was outfitted with numerous sensors and equipment to log the data and collect atmospheric and weather data. That video you're watching right now, so if you watch that thing to its end point, you can actually hear the balloon pop, and then it plummets to the earth, and they find it out in this field. I think it's out in Delaware County. So anyway, it's pretty neat event. Nice job to Metro High School STEAM Academy. The XQ Super School Bus Tour visited Cedar Rapids June 1st through 3rd as part of an effort to identify and fund 5 of America's most innovative ideas for transforming high school education. The Iowa Big Program is a nominee for this 5-year, $10 million grant. Community members joined with us to help demonstrate the strong level of community involvement with this unique project-based learning program. Cedar Rapids was one of only 17 stops across the country. We encouraged our families to attend through media communications and information on social media. Trace, this is an on-the-spot thing. About how many applied originally? Yeah. Yeah, so from 1,800 to about 300, and then they only visited about 17 sites across the country. So we're optimistic that we're still in the mix at least. We held an equity summit last week. Principals and support team members had the opportunity to share information about the equity efforts underway at their school, and also to learn about their colleagues' experiences with implementing equity and how the system can provide differentiated levels of support. So the equity summit events were held, and you can see that there at the Kirkwood Regional Center. And we'd always like to mention this, the 2016 Iowa Advanced Placement Index has been released. And great news, Cedar Rapids Washington High School is Iowa's top-ranked high school for the 8th consecutive year. Kennedy is 3rd on the list, and Jefferson is 29th. So you may wonder where that data comes from. The University of Iowa's Bell and Blank Center releases the Iowa AP Index to recognize the top 50 Iowa accredited public and non-public high schools for providing advanced placement opportunities to students. The 2016 index is based on May 2015 AP exams and May 2015 graduation data. The AP index for a given high school is the ratio of AP exams taken by its students divided by its graduating seniors. So you have to have an AP and you have to take AP Calc to figure out the calculation for the. Anyway, congratulations to the Warriors, Cougars, and Jayhawks for this recognition. And with that.
Terrific. Thank you, Dr. Buck.
Yep.
Any board reports, any comments from the board?
I do have something, John. Yes. So the Diversity Committee has been meeting throughout the school year. I was the board member appointed to be part of that Diversity Committee. Want to thank Ken Morris, Paul Hayes, as well as all the other members of that committee for welcoming me to be part of that committee and to have some of the tough discussions, the real discussions, the necessary discussions that sometimes are uncomfortable, sometimes difficult, but they're necessary just to keep us as a district moving forward to where we need to be going. Dr. Buck attended the last meeting that we had. I think the overwhelming thought from most of the members of that committee was that, into next year, there's a little bit more need for data on what we're doing, where we're going, doing things like having interactions both in schools like the equity walks that took place, as well as the equity summit that Dr. Buck had mentioned. So that was a very great experience. Might still show up next year a few times. We'll see.
Thanks, Raphael. Any other board reports? I was just going to say, I've gone back through all of the future agenda ideas, so I don't want you to think that they've fallen off the radar. Some of those we'll talk about how they can be incorporated yet this year, maybe into some of our board planning for the coming year as well. So just trying to make sure that all of those get covered as we move forward. And as part of the packet today, you have the board meeting schedule for the coming year. I had a chance to talk with Gary a little bit about this, but the thought would be to try and have a board conversation retreat, so to speak, to help do some goal planning, especially after we hear the presentation at tonight's meeting about the theory of action and what that group has come up with to help move our agenda forward and Dr. Buck's goals. So maybe do that before we get too far into the fall, so that we're just ready to go right away when the school year starts here. So just think about that. We don't need to discuss it right now, but I'll be reaching out to board members to kind of lay out my plan for that and see if you agree or have other thoughts. So
Maybe you could send out some calendar dates sooner than later.
Yep, absolutely. Yep, and most of the calendar dates would fit into a work session right on there, so I don't think we'd try and do it on a separate date if we don't have to.
Okay.
So. All right, anything else? All right, with that, we'll go ahead and move on to delegation, communications, delegations, and petitions. We did not receive any requests to speak before the board tonight, so I'm assuming there's not any interest to do that. With that, we'll go ahead and move on to the consent agenda. Are there any questions or comments from the board about the consent agenda or any items on the agenda? All right, seeing none, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as written?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
And this is a roll call vote due to the personnel report.
Director Humbles.
Aye.
Director Anhalt.
Aye.
Director Meisterling. Director Jacobo.
Aye.
Director Westerkamp.
Aye.
Director Jansen.
Aye.
President Laverty.
Aye. All right, we'll move on to administration and the annual audit committee report. Steve will go ahead and turn this over to you.
Well, members of the board, Dr. Buck, President Laverty, it's my distinct pleasure to introduce to you members of the audit committee for their annual report to the board. We have Tom Hoffman, who is the committee chair, Steve Hammes, who is he's leaving the audit committee. Sad to say, he's leaving the audit committee after 3 years of service, and will be moving on. Gary Becker will be presenting as well, and as well as Rich Patterson, who is our newest member, just completing his first year with the audit committee. Just a reminder, this is a district-appointed committee, and Kristen is our board member who is appointed to our committee. So with that, I'm going to step away from the podium and let you folks do your thing.
Thanks, Steve. Since you've done all the introductions and so forth, I'll keep my comments brief and turn it over to my respective board members, and then we'll have some time at the end of the meeting for a few questions if we're not clear. So again, thanks for the opportunity to be here tonight. Steve?
I am Steve Hammis, and I want to cover 5 points that the Audit Committee addressed this year. And we are a 9-member committee with 3-year rotating terms, so we welcome 3 new members to the committee this year. The committee charter was refined to include property asset management, which was a comment from our group the last couple of years, and we've added policies and practices related to that to our agenda. The committee engaged in an orientation session for our new and continuing members. We established the Metropolitan Interagency Insurance Program, or MIP, as a standing agenda item, and one of our members, Barb Harms, is a part of that committee, so she gave us at least 2 reports on the status of that insurance program. And lastly, the committee established a new executive session format with management to exclude external auditors so we could have discussions without our external auditors there. So for further comments, Rich Patterson.
Very good, and thank you. Steve was very good at providing a script for the committee, for me and others. I have 4 points that I'm supposed to make, but he just said that I can speak from the heart instead of reading what you also can read right there. And I have 2 things that relate to what's here that are very important. I've had the good fortune to be part of a number of boards and committees, many of them national, and I'd like to report to you that this committee is first rate. We get the materials in plenty of time to read, to digest. We can ask questions. The staff, particularly Steve, but also with Krista's help, is very efficient. They keep us moving along. They keep us on topic, and keep us efficient, and then they leave and give us some time as a committee to discuss the role of the staff, how they've been helpful, or if there are any problems. And this is first-rate stuff. So I appreciate the way the staff handles this committee. It's made it easier for me to figure out what's going on and to do the job. We have done all of the 4 things that are in my points that are up there. And I would like to just close by telling you that I much appreciate having the opportunity to be a volunteer. Many of you up there on the board are volunteers. My own 2 children went through the Cedar Rapids School District from K through 12. Went on to successful careers in college, and they now both have very satisfying and rather important jobs. I do not think that we could have enrolled our children in any other school district anywhere, public or private, and done any better than they did here. This comes from a long tradition of hard work and smart work and partnership and cooperation between the board, staff, and the many volunteers. So I do thank you for your volunteerism. For those of you who are employees, I thank you for the good work that you're doing. And I much appreciate you, and I appreciate the opportunity to also be a volunteer. So keep up the good work.
Thank you, Rich.
Hello, I'm Gary Becker, and I'm an accountant and a banker, and I'm going to return to the script. My comments are going to focus primarily on our relationship with the auditors. As we've noted in here, we do have a separate opportunity to review with the auditors any major issues as they pertain to internal controls. I'm pleased to report that there were no major issues that were brought up to us this year that we discovered. We also get a special report twice a year from them regarding the report of the activity funds. We had a very good discussion just in our last meeting about those funds with some follow-up coming, so very actively involved in reviewing those. We also reviewed with the auditors if they had any problems with management or any difficulties in performing their audits. Again, I'm pleased to report that we had no issues that came up in that process. And then we also, each and every year, take an opportunity to do a self-evaluation to see how do we evaluate ourselves. Are we accomplishing the items within our charter? Are we satisfied with the methodologies that we're working with? And Steve just presented those results at the last meeting. And again, those results were at the top end of the ranges from the historical data that he's kept. So I think we're continuing to make improvements each and every year as to our processes and how our committee operates. And last, and certainly not least, we want to take this opportunity to congratulate Steve and his entire staff for their 21st consecutive year of earning a Certificate of Excellence from the Financial Reporting, the Government Financial Officers Association, and the Association of School Business Officials International. Very prestigious award each year, which we've attained 21 consecutive times. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Are there any questions or clarifications that we can make before we finalize things?
Do you all have any questions?
Great.
Well, we do want to thank you for all of your work on the audit committee. We, those of us who have been on the board for a long time know how much effort you put into this, and I think all of us would also agree that Steve and Chris and their team do an amazing job keeping us up to date on our financial situation and in line with everything. And we also want to thank Kristen for serving as the board liaison on the committee. And if there's any issues with that, just let me know and we'll work on that. But we do want to thank you and appreciate the comments about the quality of the schools and things. You know, you are a huge part of what gives us as an elected board, even though we're volunteers, as an elected board, information as a community on what we're doing and what we can do to keep moving that district forward and make sure that we have the finances to do what we need to get done. So thank you for all of your time and energy. Appreciate it.
You're welcome, and we appreciate the opportunity to present and be here tonight. Thank you.
Right. Next, we'll go ahead and turn it over to Dr. Buck for information about theory of action.
So I can honestly say I've been excited about this all day. Noreen Bush is here today with us, and she was a co-facilitator along with John Zimmerman. She's brought a team of people that are also willing to speak, and they participated in this theory of action. I don't want to step on their toes, so they're going to go first, and then I think I'm going to have an opportunity at the end to talk a little bit about the segue to next steps. So with that, Noreen, welcome to you and your team.
Well, thank you very much for having us this evening. Again, Dr. Buck invited us to really present on not just the learning of this group, but really the product, which was really exciting work. My name, again, is Noreen Bush, and I am a Drake superintendent student, and Dr. Buck has been my mentor. So thanks, Dr. Buck.
So this is the time when you say, hey, I'm looking for a project in some hours. Do you have an idea? Do I have an idea? And it'll only be about 150 hours of your life. So,
yeah,
hey.
so that has been a great opportunity for me. But my day job is I work at College Community School District in a curriculum position in our district office and lead our secondary teams and a lot of work. So this was a wonderful partnership. If you think about the greater perspective of all children of Cedar Rapids, we too serve children of Cedar Rapids. So thank you for that opportunity. Our task force members are going to speak to a couple different points of this work, but I just will jump right in and talk about the sequence of events and what happened, and we'll move right along. So we met 4 times throughout the, I guess you could say, a spring semester. We started our work in February and ended our work in May. It was about 12 hours worth of meeting time face-to-face with 85 members of your community, but those 85 members also sought feedback from your entire community. So I would feel confident saying that hundreds of people had input on this work. This entry task was where we started our work, and that is, as learners, what did the task force members really know about a theory of action? So if you look at this target, it's going to bring us full circle. At the end of our presentation, we're going to show you the representation of what the task members learned through this process. So the black on the outside of that target would represent, I don't really know much about a theory of action as a learning member, and the yellow would represent, I really know a lot. And so this will represent our learning as we move forward. We use these meeting norms, which I would recommend are really great for any meeting, but we really focused on a we emphasis. You mentioned earlier as board members how important it is to consider every child in your community, the diverse population, and so we really can't have a they mindset, we have to have a we mindset. And so we use that mindset throughout all of our work. And then also the last bullet, a growth mindset, was also framing our work, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. Amy's going to step up and talk about just her experience as one of these task force members and what it meant to her.
Our team is really excited about being able to raise and lower a podium. We have found that very engaging, you know. It's fun to come to the board meeting just so we can do that. You know, it was very exciting to be a part of this team. And that first essential question, what is our shared understanding of our vision, excellence for all? The word that really stands out to me is the word shared. And so it is not how a consulting firm might define excellence for all, or how the school board would define excellence for all, or what have you. It is how, it's not even how Amy Foster would define excellence for all. It is how we as a collective team, as a task force, would define excellence for all. And this was hard, tedious work. It really was, but it was very exciting. We had people from all over the community. I mean, we had a lawyer, we had a dad who didn't say what his career was. We had district employees, of which I am one. I'm a reading teacher. And the challenging part was hearing all of those different ideas and bringing them together and representing all of these wonderful, rich ideas in a concise manner. And so we think we've got a pretty good idea of what makes excellence. You want to go on to the next slide then? And then here we had our learning targets, just like we would in the classroom. And this growth mindset was a really important piece of that. Thinking about our own thinking about the thinking of others, and wrapping your mind around diverse ideas and putting those together. And it really was a very beautiful experience, and I appreciate the opportunity to serve.
Thank you, Amy. And down we go. So this is just a representation of what is a growth mindset, and I don't know if any of you are familiar with Carol Dweck's work, but it's really about what the possibilities are and not the limitations. And when you're working on a direction for a strategic plan, which is really what this theory of action is, you have to allow yourself to think about possibilities and not limitations about where we've been. So that could cause you to say, oh, but that never worked before. We haven't done that before. A growth mindset means what are the possibilities for all children, and we aren't going to limit ourselves of thinking about what those possibilities are. So this is just a visual representation of what a growth mindset is. We kept framing all of our work around a growth mindset. And so this was where we started our work in February, of just a visual representation of what excellence for all could mean. And so we are going to, I think we're going to move forward. Yes, not yet. You're not on yet. Thank you. All right. So one thing we didn't want to do is forget where we've been as well. So continuous improvement has been the heart of what Cedar Rapids has been doing recently, and the spirit of innovation. So we wanted to make sure that we honored where we've been and the things that have been important to the district, those being two components. So here's the big question for you all as learners. What is a theory of action? And a lot of our folks on that target were in the black zone. They were in the outside. They hadn't done a theory of action work before. And so we started with a very simple video, and you can Google this if you'd like, on the fun theory. And that is thinking about what if you were to frame fun into everything that we do, would it make work easier? And this particular video just shows how over and over again, when a staircase is just a regular staircase, people kept choosing to take the escalator or the escalator up. And so to get more people to use the stairs for a healthy lifestyle, they turned the stairs into a live piano. And so more and more people started using the piano instead of using the escalator. So that's testing their theory. If we make the staircase fun, will more people use the staircase? So we were testing our theories as a theory of action group. So it's if we do what, then what would we expect from that theory? So if you just look at the first line of this slide, we really rooted most of our work in beliefs. And so what is it we believe for all children, and what will deliver on the promise of excellence for all? So each one of these folks were part of a group, and they developed what could be potential belief statements for the district. So now I'm going to turn it over to Jillian, who's going to talk a little bit about those beliefs.
So when we started talking about our beliefs, what we really had to do first was think about that mindset and paradigm shift. So we've all heard the phrase, I'll believe it when I see it. And we really had to stop and think about changing our mindset and our paradigm to know that if we want excellence for all, we are going to have to truly believe in all of this work before we're going to see those results with our kids. So these are our kids, this is our community. What do we want for them? And we are going to have to truly believe that before we're going to see that. And so we had to believe it then, we have to believe it now, we're going to have to believe that when we carry this out with our adult action steps.
So rooting that work in the beliefs, we continued to, this was kind of like all encompassed in the very first meeting. So this is a lot of content, just if you get, for 85 people to get on the same page. So we knew that we had to start with, okay, where have we been? So at the end of that meeting, 85 people, we had some rotation groups to look at your current state and your current data, and we asked ourselves these questions. What can we celebrate on the current strategic plan and the current things that are happening in the school district? What could we consider as other possibilities, and what do we really need to reconsider? The data's telling us what we're currently doing isn't making a powerful impact on children, and we need to reconsider what we might be doing. So we decided to really dream big and think about what those things would be, which then resulted in answering some of these questions for our future work. That all happened in the first meeting, which is a lot. When we sent information out to the teams based on the feedback from that current strategic plan, going into our second meeting, we had data based on an online survey that was sent to all of these task force members. So with that, we ended up having these results. This is really cool, actually. If you look at this data from a board member's point of view, I would really want to know this. The smaller the bar, actually, the better, because folks had to rate things from 1 to 10. We had about 13 big ideas at the end of that meeting, first meeting, and we sent it to the task force members. We said, prioritize. We're not going to be able to do all the list that was created on that first meeting. So we had them prioritize ranking 1 to 10. So if you look at what the smallest bars are, those ended up being the things that resurfaced during our second meeting. So we had the initial start to what would be the big ideas. In addition to that, we also knew, well, even though there were 13 things on this list, we still couldn't focus on 13 things. That's a lot of things to measure. So how would we narrow this down? So we got into groups, we each got $1, and in that second meeting, we spent the money. So each group had $1, and you had to divvy it up and spend your buck, how you wanted to spend your buck amongst those 13 items. From that evening, then we generated what were 6 big ideas where we were really going to focus. You will see that these themes are continuing from where you've been in the past, maybe a little different wording, but again, to honor the task force input, this is where we landed. From there, we came back to our beliefs then. So now we have 6 big ideas. What do we believe about those big ideas? And if we're going to frame them in a theory of action, if we believe equity for all children, then what is that going to look like? So then we generated some drafts, and this is all just representation of the task force work. And then, after that second meeting, maybe you all saw Dr. Buck's screencast with this visual representation. We got input from the rest of the community on these 6 big ideas. So this graphic was a product of the task force work, and we just wanted to give some sort of visual representation to the community and get feedback from them about what they thought about the initial drafts of a belief statement. So again, in 2 meetings, that's 6 hours, we had a lot of product and were able to get a lot of input. So that was our first, I guess you could say, launch of our first draft of some big ideas as well as some belief statements. So then that work came back, and then this is when these guys had to do some really, really, really hard work. So our belief statements came back to the team, and this is just a sample of one. Then we had all these thousands of pieces of feedback from the screencast that Dr. Buck sent. Over 300 people replied to that screencast and gave narrative feedback. We broke that narrative feedback back down to the 6 big ideas, gave it to the team. They read every piece of information and then decided, okay, what does that mean about the belief statement of what we need to draft? That is a lot of revision process. And then finally, we were able to take the revisions back to the final meeting. So this is where the learning landed. Again, that's that target. And if you look at the target, where we started was the yellow dots of the theory of action members. And so they just stuck a dot about where they thought they were in understanding of theory of action. The pink represents the second meeting, the green represents the third meeting, the blue represents the fourth meeting. So by the fourth meeting, people were feeling really confident about what their learning was, but also what they were doing for the kids of Cedar Rapids. We got feedback on the graphic as well as the belief statements. And this is not the final product of the graphic, but it gave us a great idea about where to go, and the task force gave us some really good input about what the graphic could potentially do. So if you remember where we started, there was that Excellence for All puzzle graphic. Well, we ended up landing there again, just in a different representation based on the task force input. So this is the first big idea, and it's about student learning. And you might think, gosh, seriously, in 12 hours, all you created was one sentence about student learning, but thousands of pieces of data were used to craft these belief statements. So I think you could feel confident as board members that your community had input on every single one of these belief statements and the big ideas. The second is student ownership. The third, equity. The fourth, culture climate. And then Jennifer is just going to speak briefly about leadership as a task force member and what her group was able to do.
So we were given the opportunity to choose which big idea we wanted to work with, and leadership was important. I think it was great that we could choose as an aspiring leader in our district, that we could not only see a final product, but be a part of the discussion, be able to be right there in the intimate part of seeing the feedback from our community, and also hearing other people who were invested in leadership in our district, and be able to craft a statement which really did go through multiple cycles of change. So.
And then Stephanie's going to comment on innovation.
So, as Jennifer mentioned, we were self-identifiers, and so with innovation, we had a group of people who were very, very wanting to shake up everything, even the good, just like make it change, we're gonna make it cool, and we're gonna do it in a completely different way. So we actually had to kind of rein ourselves in a little bit to the more practical pieces. So our crew was passionate. We ended up emphasizing student passion, creativity, and the future of the children, and to focus on experiences. And so really trying to think through project-based learning, trying to get a little bit away from the jargon, but yet make it so that the students are experiencing as they're learning so that they can lend themselves to better futures. Some of the challenges we had were kind of making sure that we were steering away from just technology, because innovation is more than just a technology solution. It's different types of teaching, just different ways of thinking about little pieces of your day-to-day. We decided that technology and innovation need to be implemented well and supported in many ways and practical in design. We also talked about how we are competing not with just the neighboring districts around here, not with just trying to be the best district in Iowa, but really competing with like the best schools in the world. And so that's where we have to kind of think a little bit differently also. Like, this is a big picture because our students are going to be competing with a global economy too. So that's kind of a way to think about innovation as well.
Thank you, Stephanie. And then finally, so we get all this work done, then what, right? And so we have our 6 big ideas. We have some belief statements to anchor our theories of action. So if we believe this, then what? So Dr. Buck, maybe you want to make a couple comments on this.
Yeah, first of all, team, thank you. Nice work. And that's a lot of work in very few sentences there. So this is one of the things the board has heard. So the document that they showed early on there is that document that the board has had, I think for several years, about kind of the 5 big ideas that we've been working on: diversification of workforce, social emotional behavior, closing the achievement gap. I mean, you've kind of seen that list. So essentially what we intend to have happen now, this is information only tonight, But at some point, we would like the board to consider adopting these sort of 6 big ideas as the guiding pieces as it works to deliver on the promise of excellence for all. Because under each of those 6 pieces, we will expect to have an action plan with strategies, tactics, metrics underneath. And the best hope out of this whole process will be if there were puzzle piece-shaped cylinders under each, there's robust strategies, tactics, metrics under each, but also recognizing that it becomes a cylinder, that it's interconnected work. So you can't talk about student learning in terms of student learning outcomes from an academics perspective, but also social emotional behavior, and not have that impact culture and climate. So those 2 things are intimately linked, because the culture and climate that's created in a classroom and in buildings and in schools also impacts the work that's being done in social and emotional behavior supports for kids. So as a board, I think what I would invite, so equity, that's one of the items that emerged. Best hope would be we'll get to the point where we click on equity and our equity plan. So some of this work is already underway. Our equity plan would pop up underneath that, and it would give people information on the work that's underway related to equity. If you're familiar with our equity plan, as an example, the very first item in our equity plan is strategies and tactics that we're using to diversify our workforce. So the pieces that have been important to the board aren't lost in this work. They're just intended to be embedded in a different way. So the message here, and it's always a balancing act, this isn't intended to be new work. It's intended to organize the work in a way that will make sense to people so that we can align it ways that make sense and measure it in ways that make sense and be held accountable about what we're going to specifically do. So what I would anticipate happening, I get the microphone like, I'm sorry. Right.
We can tell you're pumped.
Yeah, so I'm really excited about it. So when you see innovation, we have a lot of really exciting, amazing, innovative things happening underway. But oftentimes when I'm buildings, I'll be stopped by teachers or others, and they'll say, you know, I'm not a part of Blend Ed or the options program at Jefferson. I'm not a part of Johnson STEAM. I've been reading about some research on some effective practices that I think would help kids from a personalized learning standpoint, because personalized learning is built into innovation. How do I, as a teacher, know what it means to dive into this innovative work? So Trace, Dr. Pickering, is going to work with a team. He'll pull together a group, and they'll investigate this idea of innovation. They'll likely talk about things like macro innovation, so these big ideas that we've been working on. They'll also probably talk about micro innovation. So how do we help teachers feel empowered in their context to do even better things for kids in an innovative capacity? So it's really going to be a lot of work around identifying and defining beyond the definitions that are here, and then really getting at, like I say, the strategies, tactics, et cetera. And then this is a little bit of a secret, so the people that watch this on TV will know. So this is a teaser. We are going to get all staff together on August 22nd, and by all staff, I mean every staff member in the district at Kingston Stadium. And we are going to unveil the theory of action at this event, and it's going to be facilitated by a student. So he actually did a job shadow with me, and he thinks he wants to be a superintendent someday. So we said, hey, how would you like to facilitate an opening activity in front of 2,700 people? And you know what he said? Okay. I don't know what I was doing when I was 17, but it wasn't agreeing to facilitate a meeting in front of 2,700 people. But so he's ahead of the game, I guess, as it relates to becoming a superintendent. That's funny. And then we have students identified that are going to speak to why each of those pieces matter to them. So we're going to get the voice of kids resonating, and then we're going to invite staff to find themselves in this theory of action, and in many cases it'll be in more than one place. So as you think about goals for the superintendent and board, I think hopefully this will guide that work and conversation going forward. And then as you also think about workshops and potential workshops ideas, it may be worth, because we're farther down the path, we're farther down the path on some of these than others, and so we may go in order of some workshops about what are we doing with equity, what does that mean for leadership, et cetera, et cetera. So that's where we're headed. So I'm very much optimistic about the work ahead.
When the task force started, I'm a graduate of Jefferson, class of '89. I'm a Cedar Rapidian too. And I get pretty jacked up about this, knowing that this is the focus of our work as a community, because honestly, we all need to be focused on this work. And so being a college community employee, I just love to see the synthesis of the things that we're working on for the children of our community. I'd get a little choked up about that. So I'm jacked up too. It's really, it is exciting stuff. But this is what I think is so beautiful about this final graphic. It shows the interdependencies of each one of these components, and not one is more important than the other, but they can't work together without each other. So I think that's really cool. And then before, Jillian just has one more comment, but we started this work by thinking about a quote by one of my favorite poets and authors, Maya Angelou, and that one of the things that she said was, it's not what people say that you remember, it's how they make you feel. And we really started our work about what we feel about kids and what we believe about kids, and what do we believe in the end of this work. And so Jillian's going to comment about where the task force landed in the end.
So at the very end of our work together, we closed with an exit slip, like any good teacher would do in their classroom. We had an exit slip. On that exit slip, we had to identify whether we felt anxious, hopeful, or excited. And I'm a product person, but I'm also a process person. And coming into this, it was a little bit anxiety provoking because you didn't really know exactly where this work was going to take us. You had a lot of hope for it, but we didn't know exactly what was going to happen. We really had to sit back and trust the process. And we did that. And at the very end, we made a human graph. And so we identified whether we were anxious, hopeful, or excited. And then we wrote a statement justifying the way that we felt. We threw them in the middle, picked up somebody else's paper, read it, and then we got into line. So the nice thing is at the very end, we had very few people that were anxious about the work, and then it was kind of a split between hopeful and excited. And personally, I think coming into this, I was a little anxious, but very hopeful, and leaving very excited. So very, very excited about this work. So very happy to be a part of it.
That's awesome. Does the board have questions for the committee? Dr. Buck?
You were so thorough, I don't have any questions.
Very good.
Yeah, Keith.
Dr. Buck took half that time.
Exactly. In all fairness, I took half the time.
On the survey work that you said we'd want to look at, the 14 big ideas, I find it somewhat interesting that fiscal integrity is the lowest rated one.
I think that's great that you asked that question, because when we came back to framing the beliefs, we don't think about kids in dollars and cents. We think about kids in a matter of what we want for them, but really when you come down to the nuts and bolts of it, you have to have the resources, right? In order to move things forward. But I would refer to the first group that presented tonight. You'll just be counting on them to get that done. But you have to anchor that. The assumption is, right, that you have to do that as a district. But the beliefs about children, you have to have the resources to get the beliefs to happen. So I would say you can't be negligent about your fiscal integrity. Yeah.
And another one that the board's been criticized about a lot is communication to community. That's probably been our number one complaint.
Mm-hmm. So you can see the graphic has community as really a foundation to all of this, and it encompasses all of this. But I think you're absolutely right. Having a strategic plan about how you're going to communicate will be essential for the success of this work.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely.
Right. Well, when I looked at this graphic for the first time, what really struck me is that it works in both directions. So as the community supports the learning, it leads to excellence. And when there's excellence supporting the learning, then those students become part of the community. They become excellent members of the community. So it works in both directions. So.
That's a great point, Amy. Thank you. Any other questions from the board? We have been looking at this for a long time, since Dr. Buck first brought it up with us many, many moons ago. And all of you have done amazing work. I think that this will hopefully help lead us as a board, not only as a district, but as a board in our discussions. And that's sort of my hope, is that as we look at our goal setting and some of our retreat topics, that we can go back and refer to this and say, these are really how our goals fit into the strategic plan of the district. when we work with Dr. Buck to set his goals and our expectations for the coming year in his work, that this again can be a reference point for us, knowing that the entire community's really had a say in that. So I know it was lots and lots of hours of work. I heard from a number of people in the committee that it was grueling work, but rewarding work. And so Noreen and Amy and Jillian and Jennifer and Stephanie and Dr. Buck and all the others that put all that effort into it, thank you so much. It definitely will be put to good use and will help drive us hopefully in a really positive path for many years to come. Thank you.
Thanks.
I should say too, and Dr. Buck and I discussed this, he briefly mentioned it, equity was on here. Before I even had heard about this, one of the ideas, we have this equity plan, we really haven't heard about it, so hopefully one of the work sessions that we'll have sooner than later will be to talk about the equity work going on in the district. There are a lot of things that I'm not even sure we as a board have had a full briefing of everything that's gone on, let alone the public, so those are the types of discussions hopefully our work sessions will be brought around, and maybe if you all feel comfortable with it, maybe doing a little bit of reading ahead of time. I know in the past we've had some of that to be prepared to go into those sessions and understand maybe some of the parameters that these committees have been working from. So the other thing before we move into the other areas, I forgot to mention that Mary Ellen and I are talking to Impact Cedar Rapids, Impact CR tomorrow. They have some young professionals in the community, some young up-and-coming leaders, and they want to hear about community boards and panels. So Mary Ellen and I will talk to about 15 young professionals about serving on school boards, which will be kind of fun, I think. So, all right. Any other questions or comments there? Okay. We'll go ahead and move on to board governance. These are information items. Laurel, do you have any, or Dr. Buck, anybody have any comments about these?
The only thing I would like to just make sure that you're aware of is that Regulation 604.9 and the corresponding procedure go along with the public hearing tonight on the SEPA.
So the safe and responsible use of technology resources.
And student access to technology
And student
resources, both
access.
of those documents.
Okay. Does the board have any questions about the policy proposals being brought forward? Okay. These are just both information items. And then Gary and Laurel, we'll turn it over to you for the 2016 IASB legislative platform.
Very good. I'm glad Doreen is still here. I loved your theory of action work. I wonder if we could go to Des Moines and put together some theory of action plan for the state legislation. I would love to see them put together a theory of action that actually works. It's that time of year again. I can't believe that we've just finished the legislative session, that the IASB is looking for input on their legislative priorities. There are, as you look at it, and it's attached to our board, it's embedded in our board minutes, and Laurel sent it out, the 2016 IASB legislative priorities. At our next meeting, actually before our next meeting, I'll send out a little email asking you to submit what you think are your 4 or 5 top priorities, and we'll tabulate that, and we need to forward on by, would like to do it anyway in July. It needs to be forwarded into August to IASB on what we consider the priorities. Also point out that we're not limited to just what's there. If you have a suggestion or think that there's a priority that is not already on the platform, we certainly can submit that. So if you want to write that up or give a suggestion for a proposed legislative priority, feel free to also do that. And you can attach that also to the email that I'll send out, and Laurel will send out about a week before. So all you'll have to do is just put down the number of the priority using that sheet that's you're seeing. Any questions?
I'm glad that you mentioned that we can write our own if we don't see something, because we have done that in the past, especially for newer board members. And sometimes, as an urban district, some of the issues that we face may be just a little different than some of the others, so.
And they will, I failed to mention, at the fall convention, they will be acted upon by the body and voted and approved, and even those that we suggested could be acted upon there.
Great. Any other questions or comments on those? Great. Thank you, Gary. We appreciate that. All right. With that, we'll go ahead and move on to the human resources section. We have several work agreements on the agenda for tonight, and because there are nuances with each of these, we'll read them and approve them separately by roll call vote, so you're aware of that going into it. Were there any questions or comments about any of the agreements before we go into this process? Okay, and we can have questions as each one comes before us as well. So the first one is BA 16344, the resolution of issuance of teaching contracts. The board is asked to approve the resolution and authorization to issue contracts to teachers for a period of 1 year beginning July 1st, 2016. Are there any questions or comments about that? Comments from you? No. If there are no questions, then this is a roll call vote.
Director Humbles?
Aye.
Director Anhalt?
Aye.
Director Meisterling?
Aye.
Director Jacobo?
Aye.
Director Westerkamp? Director Jansen?
Aye.
President Laverty?
Aye. And next we'll move into BA 16345. This is the 2016-17 terms and conditions of employment for the following employee groups: for daycare, administrators, and non-administrative meet and confer staff. Are there any questions about any of those contracts? Seeing no questions, this is a roll call vote.
Director Anhalt?
Aye.
Director Meisterling?
Aye.
Director Jacobo?
Aye.
Director Westerkamp?
Aye.
Director Jansen?
Aye.
Director Humbles?
Aye.
President Laverty?
Aye. Next, we'll move into BA 16346, the resolution for issuance of administrative contracts. Are there any questions about that agreement? Seeing none, then this is also a roll call vote.
Director Meisterling?
Aye.
Director Jacobo?
Aye.
Director Westerkamp?
Aye.
Director Jansen?
Aye.
Director Humbles? Director Anhalt? President Laverty?
Aye. Next, we'll move into BA 16347, the 2016-17 terms and conditions of employment for bargain employee groups, including food service, CROTA, secretaries, custodians, and painters. Are there any questions from the board about those contracts? Seeing no questions, this is a roll call vote.
Director Jacobo?
Abstain.
Director Westerkamp?
Aye.
Director Jansen?
Aye.
Director Humbles?
Aye.
Director Anhalt?
Aye.
Director Meisterling?
Aye.
President Laverty?
Aye. And last of the agreements is BA 16348, the work agreement with the superintendent of schools. Are there any questions or comments about the contract with Dr. Buck? Seeing none, this is a roll call vote.
Director Westerkamp?
Aye.
Director Jansen?
Aye.
Director Humbles?
Aye.
Director Anhalt?
Aye.
Director Meisterling? Did I call Director Jacobo? Sorry, Director Jacobo?
Aye.
President Laverty?
Aye.
Everybody? Thank you.
So yes, thank you very much. We appreciate all the work that goes into that, Jill, and all the bargaining units, the teachers and the staff that are involved with those. We know that lots and lots of discussions and time go into those, and we appreciate all of your work on that. Before we move into retiree recognition, I do want to remind the board that they have their calendar just as an information item. And with that, we'll turn it over to Jill with the retiree recognition. This is a video? Okay, awesome.
The Cedar Rapids Community School District is proud to recognize the career contributions of our retiring employees. The efforts of these teachers, support staff members, and administrators have enriched the lives of thousands of students and have strengthened the district and community. I'm pleased to congratulate them on their accomplished careers and to thank them for their dedicated years of service.
Judy Dye is celebrating a 17-year career with the district, 14 of which have been spent as a faculty member at Jefferson High School. Judy teaches family and consumer science courses as well as career and technical education. She earlier served as a substitute teacher throughout the district. Thank you, Judy, for all you've done to help prepare students for the future. Congratulations on your successful career and retirement.
What I'll miss most about my experience here at Cedar Rapids Jefferson is I'll miss the staff, I'll miss the kids, and I'll miss the daily challenges. I think it's kept me on my toes. The second part would be watching kids come in as ninth graders and how much they grow and change when they walk across that stage of graduation. I plan to spend more time with my spouse, my adult children, and those 5 adorable grandbabies. We plan to travel some in the States. So looking forward to making each day count in retirement as well as teaching.
Pamela K. Garrity, known to students as Mrs. G, has enjoyed a 25-year career in the district. She currently serves as a special services paraeducator at Harrison Elementary School. In this role, she supports kindergarten through 5th grade students with reading, writing, math, and adaptive behavior. During her career, she has also worked as an associate at Nixon, Garfield, Arthur, Hiawatha, and Erskine Elementary Schools, Wilson School, and Washington High School. We thank Pam for her years of service and wish her all the best in retirement.
Definitely the children and the incredible staff at Harrison. Been part of my life for 16 years. My husband has been retired 3 years already, so he really wants to travel. And definitely spending time with our children and grandchildren. We just had number 12 on the 11th of April. And pursuing my passion for writing children's books and hopefully getting them published.
Randy Atkinson serves as the band director and fine arts chairperson at Taft Middle School. Before joining the district 15 years ago, he taught instrumental music in the Ottumwa and Linn-Mar school districts. We congratulate Randy on a 33-year teaching career and wish him all the best in retirement.
When the kids come to us, when the students come to us in 6th grade, they don't know anything about music. And we're able to, 6th grade, teach them about music. And by the time they leave in 8th grade, they're pretty accomplished musicians. And it's great to see that progress from 6th grade to 7th grade to 8th grade. We have very incredible, highly stressed jobs, and it'll be nice to get away from that. And I'm just going to enjoy my time. I'll do some running and traveling and biking and just kind of be outside and enjoy the outdoors.
Throughout her career with the district, Kim Hazlett has been focused on our youngest learners. She retires as coordinator of the Early Learning Program following 28 years of service. Thank you, Kim, for all you've done for students. Congratulations on your retirement.
Well, first and foremost would be the team members that we work with. We collaborate so well together, and it's just been a privilege to work with them. My most important role is grandma, so I have 3, soon to be 4 grandchildren, so that will be the highlight of my retirement. Lots of travel involved, hopefully, and lots of time for hobbies. Keep one foot in the early childhood arena, doing some volunteer work, probably.
Brenda Wagg has enjoyed a 21-year career in the district. She currently serves as media secretary at Coolidge Elementary School. During her tenure, she has also worked as an associate and counselor secretary at Taft Middle School. We thank Brenda for her dedication to students and families and wish her well in retirement.
Definitely the kids. I've so enjoyed working with the kids, watching them grow and become productive members of society, and just finding the right book in the library and that smile on their face when I see it. The best part about my job, I feel, has been to have the flexibility of the hours that it offered. It worked well with my children when my children were growing up, and I was around for their activities, for their Christmas break, spring break, and so forth. And now for my grandkids, I like the opportunity of the flexibility. In my retirement, I plan to do some traveling, spending time with my grandkids. And my husband and I just bought a home in Arizona, so I'll probably spend winters in Arizona.
That's terrific. Congratulations to all of the retirees. And with that, the meeting is adjourned, and board members, please leave your evaluations.